The children were already asleep when their father's phone stopped responding. It was late enough that silence felt heavier than noise, and his wife told herself he was simply driving home. By midnight, the house still had not heard his key in the door. The youngest child woke first and asked why the porch light was still on. Their mother paused, because explaining absence is harder than explaining presence. She stood at the window, watching the street as if it might apologize. Miles away, David Carter sat in the back of a patrol car with his hands resting carefully on his knees. He had handed over his license, his hospital identification, and his explanation without resistance or tone. The officer listened without hearing him. David explained again that he was a trauma surgeon on call, that his wife was recovering from surgery, and that his children were waiting. The officer glanced at the badge and set it on the hood as if it were incidental. Procedure, the officer said, mattered more than stories. David did not raise his voice, because calm can be misread as defiance. He thought of his wife's stitches, of the nurse scheduled to leave at midnight, of how medicine depends on narrow windows. He felt time slipping in ways no chart could document. At home, the children slept together without knowing why. Their mother checked the news not for reassurance, but for explanation. She found it accidentally, a small headline passing beneath the weather. The image was distant, but she recognized his posture before his face. The caption said, "Local traffic stop," and it said nothing about a surgeon or a father. Something folded inward quietly. In the morning, the children asked why their father had been on television. Their mother searched for words that would not harden them. She realized there were none that could fully protect them. David was released hours later without charges and without apology. The officer returned his belongings with procedural politeness. Nothing was said about the night that had already passed. David drove straight to the hospital instead of home. In the hallway, he learned his wife had crashed an hour earlier due to internal bleeding that went unnoticed. Time, which medicine treats as sacred, had been taken. Susurbai, but survival arrived with machines and monitoring. David stood beside her bed, knowing exactly what had gone wrong and exactly when. Knowledge did not soften the weight of it. The hospital documented the complication clinically and moved forward. The police department logged a stop as routine and closed it. Life attempted to resume, but trauma does not follow schedules. Sleep fractured into short, shallow stretches. Sirens caused her to tense even when distant. Their children watched both parents carefully, learning what vigilance looks like. "Why didn't they let you go?" one child asked. David answered slowly, "Because honesty carries weight." He said sometimes systems fail people without noticing they are doing it. Weeks later, another family approached David quietly in a hospital corridor. They recognized his name from a complaint filed months earlier. Their mother had not survived her delay. David listened instead of speaking. Each story differed slightly but shared the same shape. Authority without urgency, delay without consequence, and apologies that arrived too late. A records request revealed 17 similar complaints over 5 years. Each had been dismissed individually as unrelated. Together, they formed something undeniable. David did not want punishment or spectacle. He wanted acknowledgement that time-sensitive medicine cannot wait for bias to resolve itself. He wanted systems to notice what individuals had been forced to absorb. The lawsuit accused no single officer by name. It accused a process that treated medical urgency as optional depending on who was speaking. It asked the court to listen where institutions had not. During depositions, the officer from that night sat across from David. Without the uniform, authority no longer carried him. Recognition passed quietly between them. David answered with precision, not anger. He described timelines instead of emotions. Facts carried more weight than outrage ever could. David's children learned that justice is slow and imperfect. They also learned that silence does not always mean surrender. Sometimes it means preparation. The city settled without admitting wrongdoing. Funds were allocated toward training and emergency verification systems. Policy replaced denial. Medical credentials could no longer be dismissed during stops. On-call verification became mandatory and time-bound. The policy carried no names, only history. There was no press conference. David returned to surgery the same week the policy was signed. Justice, when quiet, does not seek applause. His wife still startled at night sometimes. The children noticed police cars differently than before. Healing arrived slowly, but it arrived. Mons latere. Handwritten apology arrived. He'd asked for nothing and explained little. It acknowledged harm without condition. The department did not become perfect. It became documented, trained, and accountable. That mattered more than punishment. Some families never received closure. Some losses could not be undone by policy. Those absences remained part of the record. David never called the lawsuit a victory. He called it a correction that arrived too late for some and just in time for others. In that space, dignity existed without noise. Some stories changed systems without changing headlines. This was one of them. This was Voices Unseen.